Hello and welcome. My name is Samantha Wellington. I am the Executive Vice President of Business Affairs, Chief Legal Officer, and Secretary at TriNet. TriNet provides full-service HR solutions, both with a professional employer organization and a human resources information system. At TriNet, we approach all problems, all opportunities from the perspective of small and medium-sized business. We solve for things like HR compliance, risk mitigation, and access to benefits, doing all those things so that small business owners can focus on the thing that they do best, which is running their business. I am thrilled to be here today in Boston, and I'm extremely honored to be here with Administrator Isabella Guzman, the 27th Administrator of the U.S. Small Business Administration. Administrator Guzman serves in President Biden's cabinet as the leading advocate for America's 33 million small and medium-sized businesses and innovative startups. She has made advancing entrepreneurship her life's work. She is the daughter of entrepreneurs. She is an entrepreneur herself. And growing up, she worked alongside her father in his chain of veterinary hospitals, going on to launch her own small businesses across a range of industries and advising other founders in paving their way to the American dream of business ownership. She served as SBA's Deputy Chief of Staff in the Obama-Biden administration, and then most recently led the California office of the Small Business Advocate. Under Administrator Guzman, the SBA has scaled and improved to help small businesses and innovative startups gain unprecedented access to capital. One of the things that Administrator Guzman talks about is the idea that small and medium-sized businesses are the giants of the economy, which I love. I think it's wonderful. You also talk about how they're the heart of the community, which is true as well. But also practically speaking, and one of the things that I really love about how you speak about small businesses is how they are the pathway to creating generational wealth. And I think that in order to create intergenerational wealth, small and medium-sized businesses obviously need access to capital. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about how over the years, maybe over the last 3 years or so, how has the landscape changed? How has the landscape changed in terms of the way that entrepreneurs meet their funding goals or seek to meet their funding goals? Do you think it's complex or easier?
Well, that's great. Well, first off, thank you, Samantha, for being here with me. This is going to be a great conversation, but also for your partnership in the Small Business Digital Alliance. We know small businesses have thrived with digital tools for their businesses and access to great resources and companies. And so thank you for being a part of it. And this is a remarkable time for small businesses. The Biden-Harris administration has really been focused on investing in America, and that means making sure the economy works for not only working families and everybody, but also small businesses in Main Street. And the president's really passionate about that. And so during the Biden-Harris administration, we've leaned into the issues that have really been challenging for our small businesses. Obviously, with the American Rescue Plan, trying to immediately save small businesses with COVID relief, forgivable loans and affordable loans and grant programs through the American Rescue Plan locally. But in addition to that, focusing on what matters at the agency long-term for our businesses. And we are basically one of the largest small business capital providers through an incredible network of lenders around the country. And so we're really focused on making sure we overcome those barriers, which we saw during the pandemic as small businesses, especially the smallest of the small, couldn't access the PPP program right away. And they struggled and were challenged with trying to get all their paperwork in order to apply for various grants and programs. And so access to capital and the barriers that have existed have been longstanding, but I think that the pandemic sort of laid bare some of those challenges. And so at the SBA, we're trying to take the learnings from the program's successes during the relief efforts and really, simplify so that small businesses can be met where they are and everywhere that they are, including digital means. And so leveraging technology to make sure that we can connect with them in an easy way and that our lending network can connect with them. But then in addition, broadening that distribution network around the country. And I think small businesses over the years, it's changed how you get capital.
Yes.
And fundraising is probably one of the biggest jobs small businesses have that they didn't imagine having to do going in. And so we're trying to make that process easier for them so that more of them can get the capital that they need. And the data that sticks with me every day, that wakes me up in the morning and gets me motivated, is that 2/3 of businesses in 2022, according to Federal Reserve studies, said that they were unable to access capital or enough capital, whatever the amount that they needed in order to grow and take advantage of the opportunities from investing in America that the Biden-Harris administration has been committed to. And so we want to make sure we solve for that and get more capital into those credit-worthy businesses.
Have you seen the way in which small businesses come to the SBA change over time?
Most definitely. Yeah. That's why broadening those distribution networks is so important. And I know earlier we talked about the fact that some communities just go straight online. African Americans, more than half of them will go straight online to find funding. So they're online. They're in communities that are banking deserts. Now that we've seen a consolidation, there are rural communities that are underserved, and our veteran community and women and people of color are not getting the investments that they need. So we need to figure out where they are to make sure we're serving them with the right lending network.
Yeah, so the idea of banking deserts actually takes me a little bit, I think, towards the regional banking crisis. And I think it would be a little remiss in this time to not talk about it at least a little bit. So when it began, TriNet dove in immediately, assisting our customers with a variety of ways so they could operate and do that thing that is so important as a small business owner, which is pay your employees. But regional banks, I think, play a really strong role in supporting communities and community businesses, small businesses in communities. From your perspective, do you see any long-term impacts on access to capital?
Well, most definitely. I mean, even before Silicon Valley Bank and Signature failed, we saw that there was some credit tightening happening in the marketplace. And with liquidity issues from deposit issues, as well as just a tightening of credit, SBA, which is the lender of last resort, we're supposed to be credit elsewhere when none is available, becomes increasingly important. We want to make sure that we can expand our tools, make our lending programs easier for more lenders to use, so that they can access this government guaranteed product, which sits on their books differently and is a good option for smaller regional banks and community banks to leverage. So we've just published a couple of rules that will simplify our programs for our lending network and make it easier for them to assess eligibility and use their best practices to really find those creditworthy businesses and still get capital out the door to maintain that relationship with their customers.
And I think that's a really interesting part of the role of the SBA, right? Is that you're not only helping small businesses access the lenders that will provide access to capital, but you're actually helping the lenders as well to find their way through how to best qualify the small businesses that you're helping, which is actually incredibly cool. And I'm not sure that many people know about what the SBA does.
Right. I mean, I like to say that we try to help the private sector get to yes.
Yes.
For our small businesses, and by providing the backing of the federal government through a federal government guaranteed lending program. Through our 7A or 504 loans, which are working capital or asset building loans. And we want our businesses to be able to find capital to buy that building that they need, or equipment, or get the working capital to go after that contract. I mean, we're investing $1.2 trillion in infrastructure around the country. Those projects have started, and contractors need capital to pursue those projects. And so on all the cases, from Main Street to manufacturing, they need capital, and the SBA is there to fix that during this time.
It's very cool. All right. So we're talking about how do we make it easier? How do we help small businesses navigate their way through the jungle of funding to make it easier for them to get access to what they need? So through the lens of the SBA, what are the main questions and concerns that you all hear with respect to how small businesses can find what they need to succeed, to access those contracts, to access the funding? What are the main barriers?
Well, and especially now it's so important because during the Biden-Harris administration, since day one, we've seen 12 million new business applications. So it's not even
so cool.
Existing businesses, but all these new entrepreneurs. And when you are out there in the jungle trying to find resources for your business, the simplicity, meeting you where you are is so important. So For our small businesses, are whether they're navigating workforce issues or capital issues or just how to market their business,
Right.
we support one of the largest networks of centers and mentors that they can access to get advice, as well as powering the Small Business Digital Alliance. I think that SBA.gov has incredible resources for that new entrepreneur, the established entrepreneur, to figure out how to get funded, grow their revenues, whether that's through government contracting or international trade or just local digital markets, and build networks around you, because you need a team in order to be successful.
Yeah, and actually, you're mentioning the sort of the resources that are available on SBA.gov, and to be honest, very honest, I was surprised by the wealth of resources that was available when we became involved with the Small Business Digital Alliance and sort of became far more attuned to what the SBA does. It truly is it's a very deep series of informational kind of excerpts that are available there. It's very, very cool. All right, so the SBA has significant investment programs in place, the Small Business Investment Company. Is that program utilized enough, or do you think that there is opportunity there for more small businesses to take advantage?
Well, overall, imagine scale. SBA puts out, over $40 billion every year in its capital programs. And it's those loans I talked about, but also our investment company products, which is debt and equity. And so we have 300 licensed small business investment companies, just over 300, who operate around the country, helping growth-oriented firms, establish themselves. And so we would love to see this program more utilized. The president's budget calls for increased capacity, authority. All of our capital programs, 7A and 504 products, as well as the SBIC program, these are zero subsidies. So that means that there are no additional cost to the taxpayer. But we want to see those programs grown and used in underserved communities, to see more women-owned firms invested in rural communities and veterans, so that those businesses that can't get capital elsewhere can get funding through the SBA. So it's a great program that we are also in the midst of rule changes to make it easier to diversify the mix of investors in the program, as well as introduce new types of products that can be more patient capital funding and longer payment terms in order for those investors to work with in a venture space, for example, growth firms. So from a small business perspective, know that whatever industry you're in, there are different types of products at the SBA that can help fund your business.
Excellent. And do you think, I think I know your answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway because for the benefit of everyone else, is it more difficult for businesses led by historically underrepresented entrepreneurs to gain access to funding and resources?
Most definitely. And I think what's important for everyone to understand as well is that, our face of entrepreneurship is changing dramatically. I talked about those 12 million new business applicants, but those are increasingly women and people of color who are starting businesses. And that's been the case for the last 10 years. But those are also the very businesses that, one, have less wealth to come to the table. And so when businesses most likely are to use credit cards or friends and family to start their business, that's oftentimes not an option. So capital resources are more restricted. And just having those networks of support and knowledge networks are really critical for these businesses as well. And so for all of our emerging businesses, I think those skill sets are really important for success. And we want all of our businesses to be able to achieve the job growth that we need for our economy and to succeed, because they are who make us globally competitive. So all of our small businesses need that type of investment. And unfortunately, we've seen through data and research numerous times over that women and people of color and veterans face different types of challenges. And so the SBA is focused on revitalizing its programs and transforming them to make sure that they meet all of those entrepreneurs where they are, everywhere that they are.
I think it sort of takes me back to the generational wealth point, that idea of, to your point, credit card funding or family and friends funding is less available perhaps for historically underrepresented entrepreneurs. And that flywheel effect that happens when you start to generate intergenerational wealth, allows it to continue to perpetuate. And I think that the initial access and the initial focus on providing access to capital with a focus on historically underrepresented entrepreneurs, or at least a focus on ensuring that historically underrepresented folk know where to go, or at least have access to meet folk where they are, is incredibly important. And I just personally very much appreciate what the administration is doing in that regard. I think it's incredibly important. All right, what are the typical requirements for grants from the SBA?
Well, so there are a couple of grant programs that the SBA funds, and most of our grant programs are for, nonprofits who help support the ecosystem. But there are a couple grants that businesses should know about. One is SBIR, Small Business Innovation Research Grants. It's what we call America's Seed Fund, but it's the 11 federal agencies that are trying to incentivize small businesses to innovate for our country, our economy. And so these SBIR grants can be as small as $50,000 up to $1 million, depending on what phase. But it's for innovative, science, technology-based startups to develop their research and develop their prototypes. And so SBIR.gov is powered by the SBA, and that's a great source for seed capital. The other is through a STEP program. It's a state trade export promotion program that every state can leverage. But it provides grants for small businesses to get ready to trade abroad. We want all of our small businesses to compete globally. And so we have grants to get your website ready to compete, for you to travel to trade shows. And it's done through states. And so we think those are important grants as well to incentivize global trade. But for the most part, our capital programs really are focused on lending, of trying to provide that guarantee and support for the private sector to get to yes for small businesses. But I would also encourage small businesses out there, because there are resources, especially with the President's American Rescue Plan. A lot of cities and counties and states use those funds to support small businesses with grants. And so our network of district offices and small business development centers and women's business centers and SCORE mentors, they all can support small businesses in searching for grants.
Which I love so much. So the SBA does it, which is awesome. If you're a TriNet client, you can also access our website, and we have consolidated those resources for you as well. Feel free to reach out to us, and we will also help you navigate through some of those grants, because I do think what's so important is that there are not just grants available at the federal level. There are grants available at state level, at community level, all over the place. It just can be quite difficult to navigate your way through them all. And
it has been. That's one of the silver linings, I believe, in the pandemic, is that people recognized how important our small businesses were to community. And at a local level, at a federal level, our small businesses are giants, as I like to say, in the economy, because they create 2/3 of net new jobs, but they create the products and services and define our neighborhoods as well. And so you've seen so much philanthropy step up for interesting grants and private corporations. And so there's a wealth of resources, but you do need navigation.
Yes. And one of the things I like to think about is, in the current macroeconomic climate, history tells us that the next great small business that will become the next great big business is being created right now, which is really exciting. It's exciting. So there are grants out there. Go get them and make yourself the next great big business, if indeed that's what you want. All right, Administrator Guzman, I'm so thankful for you spending time with us and for sharing so many helpful insights for small and medium-sized businesses across the country. Both TriNet and this Small Business Administration have a very strong commitment to helping small business. Indeed, it's why the Small Business Administration exists. It's certainly why TriNet exists. We wouldn't have a purpose without our customers, our small and medium-sized business customers. I do want to take a small moment just to thank the Small Business Digital Alliance and Business Forward for enabling this conversation to take place. We are a very proud member of the SBDA at TriNet. Thank you again, Administrator Guzman.
Oh, you're welcome. And, it is National Small Business Week.
Yes.
It's May, and it's a time for all of us to just remember that our small businesses are so critical to define our neighborhoods. So go out and support your local small businesses and celebrate their successes.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Of course.